Oh, it's clear to me, you obviously adore me. I get a plane. Some guy it's yeah,
It's 7 o'clock. I can now call to order the October 12th meeting of the Amity City Council. Will you please rise and join me in saluting flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please the name. Councilor Bojorquez, present. Councilor Dunlap, here. Councilor Dyche, here. Councilor Cody
Here.
Councilor McArthur is absent. Councilor Denis Saucier is absent, and Mayor is present. Thank you. Let's start off with the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Consent agenda. Now we'll move into the citizen comment question portion of the evening. This is an opportunity to present items that are not on the regular agenda. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We will start off this evening with comments from the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office.
Good evening. So for last month, September, you guys had 150 calls for service in 17 case numbers for the phone. It was the same case number as August. A few more calls for service, which I think some of that has to do with more civil services. Programs and that stuff. But all in all, there was 125 calls in August, 150 in July. So it's kind of still right there. A little bit about the same activity level. I know the summers we've been trying to get out a bit more. School started through the month. Hopefully you guys have seen them there. That they're soft all and just being capable. Make sure that we're giving schools some attention in the morning. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot that I'm aware of. There was on the log for ordinance complaints that looks like some are just continuing to chip away at some of that stuff. I don't know how many vehicles or whatnot that would have been built last month. I didn't have a chance to get a report on that. Other than that, as far as the sheriff's office for this month, trunk or treat is going on, correct? The church. Okay. And so we'll try to make sure that we have a presence down there for that. Do you know the time that that's going to be?
It's at 5:30.
5:30. Other than that, this is my last month. We got through the time being on the contract again, but I'm going to be moving into a different role at some point. I'm not sure when yet, but Sergeant Will Lavish is newly promoted who's gonna be taking over the end of the contract, which I know we decided for. Because it's a big contract, it's, I mean, for my purposes, very nice and everything is great, so. But anyway, he's gonna be taking over, I'm gonna be moving into more of an administrative role and help out with some projects, like many volunteers and stuff like that. But I would imagine that will be a fairly temporary assignment, and then I'll be coming back to the road at some point. In which case I'll pick up a contract again, and certainly be happy to, I mean, it's central, and it's easy to work with, but I will let certain times introduce himself.
I'm the not so long-winded sergeant. As Travis explained, yes, I was just recently promoted. I've been with the sheriff's office for, this will be my 13th year. Just coming back to the patrol, I spent the last 4.5, almost 5 years in our detective division, working with crime against children, and home age with parents. So I'm very happy to take a break from that, as I have 3 kids and 1 on the way. I grew up in Yandell County. I actually, my wife and I both were in Carlton graduates, so I enjoy a small town, which might be close to. I have family members that reside in Amity and friends, so I'm an open book. If anybody needs anything, please feel free to reach out, and we'll keep chugging along.
And so, again, we have the name, for Rodriguez. Last vacated, and then so did, Twitchell, he's going into the vacant contract. We have some vacancies in, our investigation here for Rodriguez, moving there. In fact, we started, I think, this week. So David Mills, he's been with the office for 8 years, close to 10 years. So he's a very tenured deputy. He's currently has been for the last year and a half, in a DUI, funded position. He's focusing on DUIs, and I think he actually focused more DUIs than any other cop in the state. He's doing a tremendous job. He's going to be temporarily assigned to work on families to make sure that we have a presence here. He will be handling all the calls for service managing during the shifts, but he is going to stretch out a little bit so that we can make sure that we've got them trained doing some DUIs that are not DUIs, taken off of the pre-manageable treat, because that's certainly his specialty. And he's looking forward to going that contract slot as long as needed. And then we'll fill it in more permanent position as soon as we can. He's a tenured deputy, the level of service should not be decreasing at all. And the last stepping in the supervisor role, he has experience that I don't have. I never worked in investigations, particularly with sex crimes and whatnot. So if any of the issues going on in town, he has all that experience that he will focus on. I think it should be a very seamless transition. Also be around the home fulfilled need. Actually, it's very helpful. Any questions at all? Or do you have any concerns with the month moving forward? That you be addressed with the guys?
Well, I just want to thank you for the time that you sit here and dedication, and welcome Sergeant Lavish. And then, is there questions from the council? And so on. Is the high school, were they able to get hold of you guys about the parade tomorrow?
I'm not aware of it, but I can make sure that someone's communicating with them.
I told them to contact them.
Okay. And then now I'm going to some point and start shift, overlap and communicating. But I just need to know when we make sure that we haven't communicated first thing in touch with the school.
Okay.
So they're homecoming.
Yeah.
What time?
They did say to give them a contact.
I think it's 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so they're gonna start ramping up at 2 o'clock and leave about 2:40. From the high school down to the elementary. I'm about to add them guidance.
Okay. The only other thing I had enough to ask about, there's an email yesterday from him that apparently the radar doesn't got moved back down here. But I've been looking since I started shipping. I just did an email saying that it wasn't working correctly. I haven't driven up to observe as you know if that got resolved today, or we can fix that.
I don't know. We had a couple concern comments about the fact that people driving the correct speed weren't triggering the sign at all, so.
Okay, so yeah, some of you communicated, I don't know if that was handled today or not, I have to check it, so I will check it and make sure that we're going to fix so we can get the time down.
But we did also get comments from multiple people, at least on through email and stuff, thanking you guys for bringing it down here and bringing it back to us. So they did appreciate that and happy to have it.
How's your temporary plan working now? The mobile one?
It's in there because the batteries died, so I got to.
Yeah, well, that's taking the radar. For it out a couple days and then perfect, so we know the solar panel. You have had an outcome.
Yes, we have, but I drained the batteries, so I gotta swap it. I haven't had time to swap the batteries. As soon as I do it, we'll put it back out there.
It's nice to have, and we've utilized it in school zones, which is just a good reminder. Are there any questions? Council? I just don't want to let you off the hook without one last question about the crime summary that you love so much. So we're in October, up to October, and the year-to-date for the total, we're about half of what we were last year.
Okay.
204 to 395. Any insight into that? Obviously, it's good if those major crimes are going down.
Yeah.
Is there any other?
I can take a closer look at it. We can kind of go through and see if there's what categories and drastically down. Did you know any specific categories?
No, there's no red flags or areas of concern. I just didn't know if there's something we didn't know that was, okay.
They fluctuate, and again, like we talked about, the numbers themselves overall are kind of small, but I mean, I know that our regulations have been active in like the later hours and the evenings. So we haven't had some, I don't think we've had much of the beating type stuff this year. And stuff, so I can take a look at it. If anything jumps out on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. do
Overall,
that.
I would just say, I like this.
Right?
Down that
Good job.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate the time, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to the Dyche report.
I'm reading the big report. So we haven't had a dig meeting, so I don't really have a report, but the haying baskets will all get taken down and over to the high school. And so I'm working with Stephanie on working on baskets again, storing them for next year. What plant already, because she's got to order seed. So, you know, on to that project. And so we have our new banners and they're good, all nice down the boulevard. And so I think maybe next we will be thinking a little bit more about the Christmas function, because I'd say we're ready to have another, you know, event down here, most likely, and tree lighting here. Not that we have had any kind of meeting about that at all, but I think that's what is the goal still. So,
Yeah, please keep us in the loop when you
Yeah.
have a meeting.
yeah.
The city wants to be a partner and.
Yeah, and well, and I know the fire department has really stepped up with the last couple of years, especially with the parade and how wonderful that was. So, you know, and maybe to have something down there, fire hall was kind of how it was, but I don't know if that's really that safe or if we want to do that. And I think it's probably better to have it here at our community center. So anyway, that's the thought I have, but I totally know nothing until everybody says what they think too. Just trying to get the lay of the land, you know? And so, yeah.
Any questions for them?
So there hasn't been a date set for the parade?
Christmas
What?
break is always the first Friday of the month.
Okay, I was just making sure that it was that date still.
Well, it was always the, not the Thanksgiving weekend, but the next Friday
Right,
after
okay.
Thanksgiving, which was usually, I think, but we've got it, 24th is Thanksgiving, so I don't know, that might make it.
It should be December 2nd.
Okay, that is the date that the fire department was thinking that it was, so I just wanted to confirm that that is when it was.
That's probably, we're gonna continue planning that date.
Okay,
Very
perfect.
good. And so, okay, yeah, I have a daffodil meeting in a couple of weeks, and the Daffodil Society, the Oregon Daffodil Society has really had some more losses of people running. And so So I'm not sure how much more involvement, if there is an Oregon Daffodil Society that, have part of our festival anymore, but, see. Okay. Mhm.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Do we have any citizen comments? Well, I want Zoom first.
Okay,
Can you ask?
well, I texted them and both said they did not, but I'll ask right now.
Oh, no.
Kim and or Amanda, would either of you like to speak at this time? They indicated they would probably prefer talking at the library, but
Okay.
we'll give them a chance. They both said no, thank you. So
Okay. And then we do have a citizen comment.
Good evening, Elizabeth Hill, 408 Wolf Avenue. First of all, I'd like to thank the city for working with FEMA and getting whatever happened so that we play nice with them. Because I just got a $1,200 check back from my flood insurance. So they lowered my rates and I'm very happy about that. And so thank you for whoever was working on that. Secondly, I'd like to talk to you all about the high school and the school district. They are going to be moving the middle school over to the high school. And the high school has a new policy that the students are not allowed to use their cell phones on school property. We were driving by there the other day. Several students came off the middle of the curb like this into the street. And I went, oh, that's not good. And then I looked up and I realized there are no speed limit signs for a school zone anywhere around the high school. I called the school said, call the school district. I called the school district said, call ODOT. I called ODOT said, no, call the school district or the city. So I called the city put me back to Public Works. And Gary says, I wish I could help you, but I'm leaving. Can you come to the meeting? So ODOT said since it's not on a highway, they don't have anything to do with it. The school district says they're not allowed to put anything on public property. And so I am officially asking you all if you would please somehow or another see that there are signs put up or whatever has to be done. Do I have to write a letter? But 5 miles an hour makes a big difference, especially if you hit a child that's not paying attention. And yes, the principal of the school is addressing that with the students that they need to pay attention, but teenagers.
Well,
So
yeah, thank you for coming tonight. And honestly, this is what it takes, is a concerned citizen coming and letting us know so that we're aware. So now that we know, and if it's an issue, we'll work on it.
okay.
To get those
And not just in front, but there's side streets to the high school. And if you take care of it all now, then you don't have to go back and revisit it once the middle school gets there.
Yeah, we'll have to
And
look up the
Ordinance.
official school zone,
Exactly.
and work with that. And then also not to always bring money into it, signs are expensive.
Oh, yes.
So I will just promise that we will work on it as best we can.
They have a huge budget for the remodel. You might be able to play nicer and work together with the school district and get half of it covered. Since
Yeah,
they're moving younger ones over there.
yeah, no, we have a good partnership, but thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you bringing that.
Okay, is there anything else that I need to do to help make this process? Does it need to be in writing?
No,
Okay,
no, just thank
Got
you.
it.
for coming.
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks again for my money back.
I
I would like to try it.
Do we have any other citizens' comments or something that's not on the agenda tonight? Great. With that, we can move on to old business, of which there is none. I guess, okay. We'll move into the public hearing. So the city council will now conduct a public hearing concerning the council's intent to apply for community development block grant in 2023 in the amount of $1,500,000 to improve the Amity Public Library. The purpose of this first hearing is for city council to take comments from citizens about both community development needs and the project proposed for grant funding prior to applying for the housing and urban development through Business Oregon for the funding. And now I will read the public notice and notice of public hearing. Just to give some context. The city of Amity is eligible to apply for a 2022 Community Development Block Grant from Business Oregon. Community Development Block Grant funds come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The grant can be used for public facilities and housing improvements, primarily for persons with low and moderate incomes. Approximately 12 million will be awarded to Oregon non-metropolitan cities and counties in 2022. The maximum grant that a city or county can receive is 1.5 million. The city of Amity is preparing an application for a 2022 Community Development Block Grant from Business Oregon for Amity Public Library. It is estimated that the proposed project will benefit at least 1,809 persons, of whom nearly 50% will be low or moderate income. A public hearing will be held by the Amity City Council at 7 p.m. on October 12, 2022 at Amity City Hall. The purpose of this hearing is for the City Council to obtain citizen views and to respond to questions and comments about community development and housing needs, especially the needs of low and moderate income persons, as well as other needs in the community that might be assisted with the Community Development Block Grant project and the proposed plan. Written comments are also welcome and must be received by 5 p.m. October 11th, 2022 at P.O. Box 159, Amity, Oregon 97101, and dropped off at City Hall at 109 Maddox Avenue, Amity, Oregon 97101. Both oral and written comments will be considered by City Council in deciding whether to apply. I do have to read this. The location of the hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Please contact City Recorder Tasha Johnson at 503-835-3711 if you will need any special accommodations to attend or participate in the meeting. The meeting will have a Zoom component. For those unable to attend in person, please use the following link and passcode. And it's stated. More information about Oregon Community Development Block Grants, the proposed project, and records about Amity's past use of Community Development Block Grant funds is available for public review at Amity City Hall during regular office hours. Advance notice is requested. If special accommodations are needed, please notify City Recorder Tasha Johnson at 503-835-3711 so that appropriate assistance can be provided. Permanent involuntary displacement of persons or businesses is not anticipated as a result from the proposed project. If displacement becomes necessary, alternatives will be examined to minimize displacement and provide required reasonable benefits to those displaced. Any low and moderate income housing that is demolished or converted to another use will be replaced. So at this time, public testimony portion is open, but we're going to start with a staff report to just give a rundown on the project and what has happened so far pre-application.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor King. First, thank you for reading that. That was a requirement from the Housing and Urban Development people that we read that verbatim. So sorry for having to hear all that, but that was a requirement. There was a mention of previous grants that we have taken in from HUD. The city of Amity has received a $2.129 million community development block grant in 2017 timeframe, which was fully executed and closed out in 2021, and it was used for redevelopment of our water infrastructure, specifically our water filters and the water reservoirs. At this time, we are, as mentioned, planning on receiving 1.5 or applying for $1.5 million in grants. Although it says 2022 funding source because we're starting this year, it's actually going to be a 2023 cycle. And we learned this morning from HUD that that because of most of their 2022 funding has been tapped out, we actually won't be able to apply for this grant in full until July of 2023. So we're about 8-9 months out from being able to apply. This is not necessarily bad news because it gives us that amount of time to put together our pre-application packet and our intake and then prepare all the information necessary to go with the application. So some of the things that we need to get between now and then is a detailed budget estimate of what we expect the project to cost out of the $1.5 million that we're going to get. An overview of what the project will entail to the best of our knowledge. We've completed the public notice and public hearings. They also request that we attempt multiple community outreach sessions, which we'll get to in a second. They recommend, although city match of 1% is beneficial, it's not required. A city match of 1% plus $1 would be $15,001 that the city could match. That will help our application as well. So what we're planning on doing at this point is working with the Friends of the Library who are here today to start the process with the consultant using potentially Ford Foundation money and grants to facilitate that, bring the consultant in to work with the local community to see what they're willing to, what they would like to see out of this library, knowing that $1 million probably won't go so far with inflation and current costs, but we'll do the best we can, and then we'll massage all that information into the application packet and the requirements that they'll levy and submit that in July of next year. Let's see what else is in here. Some of the things that we do need to take into consideration is that we'll need to do an environmental assessment. Now they will pay for that as part of the grant funding, so that can be upwards of about $250,000. So that would come out of that 1.5 million if we have them pay for it. We can also do an environmental assessment on our own beforehand, which scores us more points, but they will not reimburse. So I basically told them we would do the environmental assessment when we take the application. We would need to get an architect that would sign engineering documents or concept drawing of what the proposed building or new library would look like, and that we would need to submit that. And they also recommended that we get a tentative contract struck with a grant administrator, which would be the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. Have that set up in such a way that once the grant was approved, then it would trigger that and basically automatically engage that contract for them to be our grant managers. So we can start that process of getting that wording and those tentative contracts all set up with the COG. And I've talked with Scott Dadson previously, not in the last couple of weeks, but previously about him doing this with the executive director of the COG, I should say. And he said the COG would be supportive of doing that for a nominal cost. That cost would be more or less paid by us until we got to the grant portion, and they may be able to reimburse some of that cost. Additionally, we have to do we have to have money for contingency and grant overhead. So technically out of a $1.5 million grant that we would get, once we do the environmental assessment and everything else, we'll probably only have about $1.1 million available for the project. I did some back of the napkin math earlier and determined that we could probably get a prefabricated building library type set up and installed for about $750,000 to $800,000, maybe a little more, a little bit less. So we should be able to work within the $1 million budget, but we'll need to flesh all that out and have that all detailed in an actual budget that we'll submit to them. So the warning we got from Arthur Chaffett previously was $1 million doesn't go as far as you think, and once you add in all the other costs, we have to project the budget out to potentially 2020, late 2023, early 2024 timeframe, because that's 18 months from now. We may not get a lot out of this. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that we're not going to get this brand new, 10,000 foot complex and glass and a bunch of other stuff. It's going to be a very basic improvement. So just to manage some expectations. I'm open for questions. I have all the documentation here so far, but that concludes my staff report.
So I think, is there a question from council from me before we start?
No.
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm just wondering what style, I'm thinking of building I had a pole barn type building built, which is a lot less than you're talking about. Roughly about 10 grand. Can you use that style and remodify the interior? It's all in and basically the structure building, metal outside, metal roof.
Yes, sir. We actually initiated this about 6 months ago and got an estimate on a 1.5 story. So basically a 1-story building with a loft addition to it. Pole barn from Portland prefabricated buildings in Portland, Oregon, and the cost was about $300,000. But all they provided us was the shell of the building and installation. We would have to do everything else, so that's why I kind of doubled the cost for all the other stuff and then added some. So yes, we would be considering doing a pole barn type building as a prefabricated facility. That is what I'm looking at right now as within the realm of possible. However, we may be able to go a different direction.
All those details would be in the future and hashed out through the consultation process.
You
So-
want to name my contractor?
Your contractor, when the time comes, they can bid on the project as in that when we get to that point.
Yeah,
So,
mine is not a two-story building, so it does have a loft, but it's not the type you're thinking of. You can't walk in.
we,
You're a lot taller than I am.
but we did, so the footprint we're looking at right now, and actually I should mention since it was brought up when she read the notice. There is no intent and no requirement right now to impact any housing within the area. We own the property, we own the building. Right now, the intent would be to demolish the current building. That's going to be a pretty sizable chunk of change as well, but demolish the current building down to the foundation, repair the foundation, and put in a new building, probably this prefabricated pole barn, but maybe something different. Basically on the same footprint that we currently have, maybe just a little bit larger. And that would be the basically what we're looking at. So no impact to the low income housing, no impact to housing overall. Shouldn't be any impact to local businesses. There may be some temporary disruption to the coffee town during construction. We'll have to work with that at that point, but they should still be able to operate. So all those impacts that you mentioned in the reading should be mitigated or minimized, or we'll put that into the plan, how we'll mitigate or minimize those things. But right now, this looks like a very feasible option to go forward with this.
So to reel us back in, and before we get too heavy into the details, tonight's public hearing will have the council decide whether we move forward with this application. So with that said, I want to move into public testimony. And we'll start with testimony for the project. Mike, can you read in the written testimony, or would you like me to? Is this the only?
That's the only written testimony we have. We have 2 folks that online here and people here that maybe want to testify
Okay,
locally, but yeah, I can read that in.
please. I can read, but I'll let you do others. Let's start with written and then we'll move to Zoom to give them the chance.
All right, this is a letter in support of a new library and the community development block grant. It is dated for October. The letter states, as a regular user of the Amity Public Library, I'm in support of the city of Amity's proposed application for federal community development block grant funds towards building a new library in the city. The Amity Library is the only library serving our community of just over 1,800 people. The current library is the size of a large 1-story garage. Due to the library's current dimensions, a limited number of books are available on site. There is a small area for children's books and books, periodicals, and videos for all others fill each wall, and narrow aisles nearly to the ceiling. The library is woefully inadequate to serve the residents who visit frequently, but often must order books through the Chemeketa Cooperative Regional Library Service. A larger facility would facilitate the housing of additional books and resources needed by the community. I fully encourage the city of Amity to apply for the community development block grant funding for a new larger facility to serve the residents of Amity. Sincerely, E. Silverman, and she provides her address.
Thank you. So now can we ask members on Zoom if any of them would like to testify in favor of the project?
Well, Amanda just popped up on screen, so I'm assuming she would. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, Amanda, and speak, you may.
Sounds good. How's my audio?
Good.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, definitely here in community support of the library proposal. I am a resident of the county, but just adjacent to Amity and a mother of a toddler. So the library, as it stands currently, is a highlight of our week, and definitely deep gratitude to Patty and Ann, who provide just such a daily and weekly support. And I was thrilled as a parent of the community to hear that we're considering a proposal to expand. Definitely the expanded shelf space to complement the interlibrary loan that we already have. That's phenomenal, would be such an asset. And I'd really encourage the council and the planning of the application to consider, would there be community space that could be added in as a benefit to the community, especially in our weather seasons. You know, the McMinnville community space I've seen used, whether it be through classes, you know, reservations of that space. And I think that could be a great asset to our local community. I grew up in a rural community in Washington State with a fantastic library, and that was just such a benefit to my childhood all the way through young adulthood. So definitely, as a member of the community, I am here in full support. Thank you for the time to testify and the opportunity on Zoom.
Could you restate your last name, please, Amanda?
Yeah, Amanda Oenbring, Oenbring.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing that. And I think Kim Searching has no questions or comments.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. Kim, I would just say if you change your mind before we move on, please feel free to comment, but I guess we can move on.
Okay, and then I would write, if there's any other testimony in favor of the project, please come up, state your name and address.
Elizabeth Hill, 408 Wolf Avenue again. I believe that the library is an asset to the community, and I feel it would be in the city's best interest to upgrade it for safety, making sure that it is ADA compatible, because those aisles are really tiny. If you have somebody in a wheelchair, it's very difficult to get in, or even on crutches. It's very difficult. So, but I am in favor of the library, and you might want to consider, as far as costs, there is a large number of construction people in the city of Amity that might be willing to cut you all a deal. And also the high school has a tech unit now, and they're learning how to do electricity, build cabinets. That might be another option to have them help with this.
Thank you.
I'm Chanel Denton. I live at 21700 Broadmead Road. I'm in total favor of this new library. I worked as a volunteer librarian for many years, and what we need is the space for children to be safe. We need better computers. We need more. It's such an asset to the community, and we're building this community with everything being new. We need to just spruce it up. I'm so in.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Deb Conrad, 11705 Southwest Latsfield Road, McMinnville. And by my address, you might think, why is she here? And that's because I'm president of Friends of the Amity Public Library. I identify as an Amity resident. So all of my volunteer efforts have been in Amity. And on behalf of the board, we have talked about everything else here tonight, and Eve couldn't be here, but we are all in perfect agreement that we need a new library, and we will do whatever we can to help make that happen. One of the things that we would like to do is work with a library consultant. One of the things that will get us extra points for the CDBG application, is it the summary application?
The full application.
The full application is to work with a consultant to answer some questions. For example, what this library space needs are. How will those best be addressed with a new facility? And especially what kind of community engagement activities will give Amity residents, not just in city, but those who will use the library, the opportunity to share their vision. Because we've had several small meetings and we've come up with some plans, but we need everybody's voice. We need to hear what the mothers with young toddlers would need in a library. We need to hear from senior citizens. We need to hear from the homeless. We need to hear from the different groups that will be using this facility. We need to find out about the needed funds. What if the CDBG funds aren't sufficient? Well, there's other funding available. But a consultant can help us determine sources of funds and how to tap them. Building a timeline, we've got until July 1st to submit the preliminary application. And then we want to hit the ground running after that, if that is successful, and we have every expectation that it will be. And that would include all related activities, fundraising, renovation and construction, public awareness, so that everybody knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so our consultant, we've identified her, and Penny Hummel has worked, she was director of the Canby Public Library for years. And after she retired, she started working as a library consultant, and she has worked with small libraries all over the state. One of the reasons that we thought that the Friends of the Library would be the appropriate holding authority to write a small technical assistance grant is because we are a 501c3. And we don't have to jump through all of the hoops that the city would. We wouldn't have to go out for bid. We wouldn't have to, do all of those things. We can pick the one that the board recommendation who would fund and fund that grant recommended, and they recommend Penny highly. So Penny would conduct a site visit. She would come back numerous times to meet with city staff, meet with residents, assess space needs, conduct a community survey, gather community input, and crunch the data and turn it back in the form of usable data and a document with recommendations.
I'm gonna give you a quick 1 minute.
Okay, and then help the library develop that general timeline. So for the cost of all of that, she would charge us $5,000, and I'm sure that the Ford Foundation would need that. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
After testimony, there'll be council discussion and questions, so if you don't mind hanging around. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a matter of full disclosure, the Friends of the Library have been partnered with us throughout this entire process. They've been in the meetings, they have been actively engaged in this, and it's been a very positive and collaborative effort. There was no requirement levied upon them to be here tonight. They're here voluntarily, but it must be declared that they are actively engaged in this process with the city. So.
We have more testimony.
Hi, I'm Ann Jenkins. I don't really have a prepared statement, but I thought as the library director, I should probably say a few words. I'm encouraged by the testimonies we've heard, and I just wanted to share one picture of the mold that is in the library. I'll give you a close-up if you're interested. That I've been working there for 6 or 7 years. It's not a healthy environment. Not good for my colleague Patty either. But that's just part of the problems. There's electrical problems. We don't fit the minimum requirement of Wi-Fi for the consortium that we're in, CCRLS. I've toured the Willamina Library, which spent, I think, $20,000 on a renovation in the past couple of years. They do have a pole barn type building. And it's worked well for them. They've included a loft in their renovations, and they've also made a meeting room that's also surrounded by books. So it's a good use of space. There's nothing wasted there. So I've gotten quite a few ideas from them as well, so. Willamette, yeah. So that's all for me.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor of the project?
Erin Rainey, 11270 Southwest River Bend Road, McMinnville. And I just want to testify in support of our library. I think that education is the best thing we can do for our children, and it's our turn to pass it on. And a good library that's up to date with technology, you know. I don't know, my kids say, you've got a cookbook for, you know, we need to go to the next step. But that next step still needs to be at the library. And it's a great resource. So, yeah, I encourage you all to think big.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other testimony in favor?
I will state real quickly that Kim has dropped offline, so I have no idea whether she was in support or against. But
Okay, we're just glad that people show up regardless. So not seeing any more testimony in favor of the project, I'll ask for any testimony or citizen comments against the project.
I will make, on behalf of some of the comments we've seen on social media, there was a request that in lieu of doing this project, potentially taking a CBD grant money or finding grant money to do sidewalks and other connectivity, bike path, et cetera, within the community, and use the money for that. Not exactly sure if the community development block grant for facilities would incorporate or allow us to do sidewalks, but that was one comment. There was also a comment, instead of doing the library, if we could work in a public-private partnership with local property owners here to install a community garden, provide fresh vegetables, and maybe attach that to a farmer's market. So those were two comments I've seen on social media that were not necessarily against doing this work, but more for considering other options for grant money. So I just want to put that out there on the record.
Thank you. So with that, at this time, I will close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. And we're open for council discussion. There is an agenda item attached to this.
So the agenda item, most of it I covered in the staff report. To summarize, a new library would improve ADA accessibility, expand the facility footprint somewhat, improve functionality of the library for all patrons, allow for future use and growth for the community as a whole. So that's what we would hope to do with this facility. And as stated, we would, if we apply in July, we would probably get the grant in October, November of 2023. So a year from now, figure a couple months with the holidays to get everything organized, we'd probably break ground in the spring of 2024. So roughly 18 months before we get started. And so just to manage expectations on the timeline. But that's all I have as far as the agenda item and staff, remaining staff information.
I would love to hear any questions from council or anything on the subject.
So Deb, in regards to the library consultant, I wasn't all the way following. Will it be a Ford Foundation grant to cover the cost of the 5,000?
We just had to close business grant
Okay,
to plan the project.
okay. And have you already applied for it, or is it just out there and we can apply and it's likely we'll get it?
We're ready to apply, we're just waiting for the council to approve going forward with the CDBG.
Okay. And I had a question about just the HUD grants in general are. If there are contracts in place, are donation type things allowed? Are we allowed to get an architect who signs off for free on things? Are we allowed to get a contractor who will do the demo for free, that kind of thing to reduce the costs?
So anything before the application is submitted, that's on us. What we submit with that application, what's been done before is not part of their statement. Afterwards, it's very particular, it's federal funds, there's a lot of specifications, which would be no in-kind contributions, we can't have a professional contractor give their work away, it's all the native speaking wages, and it needs to all be contracted. But up to, it's really front loaded with a lot of work being done, and the library have the plan to get that rolling. A lot of the work will be done, but once construction starts, it's all HUD rules.
Okay, that was.
But financial donations could be accepted. And after the construction and HUD project is complete, it will be signed off quickly, and then any additional work, additional anything would be on city terms without the federal.
And correct me if I'm wrong, they were in the meeting this morning, they did state specifically that if we budget this out and it comes out to, let's say, $1.6 million total, the city would be responsible for the remaining $100,000, and we would have to show how we would fund that money. How I interpreted this is where I might need their support. How I interpreted that is if someone was willing to grant us, gift us, donate us $100,000 for that purpose, that is legal and that's approved. But they can't, if they say, well, I'll give you $100,000 worth of free construction, that would not be allowed. But they could, if somebody wanted to just cut us a check, they could do that.
And will fundraising start as soon as, like, before we apply for the grant or after?
It could go either way.
What we brought up earlier, from the tech school at the high school, that means we can't help the students with their education by working on this building. It has to be a contractor.
Yes and no. We would have to set up a legal contract with them and pay them for their services at the federal mandated labor rates. But we could give them that contract. So if the Davis-Bacon Fair Wage Act says that we have to pay them $20 an hour, and just spitballing numbers here, we would have to contract with them for $20 an hour. But yes, we could use them in that circumstance. Just having them come over and wire the building, no, they cannot do that.
Well, I know enough about the trade school. If they work with a contractor, the contractor has to be able to sign off on their training as an electrician, you know. Even though they are in training, you can still sign off certain parts of their school training as training teachers with us.
Yeah, so in that situation, if we went with like GPEC or another local D&D electric and had them do the electrics and contracted with them.
Yeah.
If they turned around and subcontracted and brought on all the students as trainees, that would be allowed. But HUD would still require us to prove that they were paid the fair wages and met all the federal standards for employment and health insurance and OSHA and all that other stuff. We would have to prove all that. So if a contractor wanted to bring on the students, they could do that, but they would still have to meet all those requirements.
Now you got me curious. Does a student get a regular paycheck, or does it go to the school?
That I don't know. That would have to be worked out in detail when we did all that. I don't know.
If you said wages usually paid to the employee. In this case, we're using trainees from the school, so it gets a different area altogether.
Yeah.
But again, that would be way down in the details.
Yeah. But theoretically, in theory, yes, we could utilize the students, but they can't just come over and
So I understand that
wire the building.
there's certain things that have to be agreed on by the contract. especially in this case, the electrical contractor. Has to agree to, if he wants to use them to serve his own men.
Correct.
Council President, Dyche, do you have any questions or input? Any thoughts or feelings you'd like to share? Councilor Goins?
You said, something about we could put in 1.5% if we wanted to, but wasn't a have to. Does that up our chances of getting it substantially, or?
Yeah, so they rate everything on a point scale, and I believe it is 5 points. I don't want to dig for, but it's like 5 points we would get if we would present a match to the project. So $1.5 million, 1% would be $15,000, but then they told us, 1% plus $1, so $15,001. If we could match that, we would get the minimum number of points. If we could say do $20,000 or $50,000, then we would get more points. How many, I don't know, but if we basically say we cannot afford a match, that does not eliminate our package or our application. It just makes us a little less competitive.
And then, so if we have that match, we just need to show them like on a bank statement, like in a line item form.
Yes, we would have to budget it and have the cash available to do so. So we would have to have a line item for CDBG library grant match funds, $15,001, and have that and show that we have that prepared.
It's gonna be like fundraise to try to get that.
I was gonna say we have to, because at this point, I don't know where we would go.
Yeah.
So I did think about this a little bit after the meeting this morning. Since we'd be starting the budget cycle, we could budget that for next year's budget. Since the application and the new fiscal year would start simultaneously, we could budget the grant in the 23-24 budget. And have it there as a backup if we need it.
Had we not met that fundraising
Yeah.
goal by July 1st?
Exactly, or we can try and do the fundraising, so it's out there as a possibility. But yes, I agree with the council. I'm not sure where we find that just yet, but it's a possibility. And they did state clearly that the match has to be capped or monetary. It can't be in kind or anything, but they didn't say how we could raise it. So if we did get a $15,000 fundraiser together, GoFundMe, Kickstarter, or check something, and somebody gave, and we got that money, that would qualify as the match.
And then do we need that when we turn in the paperwork, the application that has to be?
We'd have to show that we have that in part of it, because we have to submit that as part of the budget and then show that as the documentation that we have that money available. So yes.
So in the next 7 months, we would need to raise $15,000.
Yes, so on a big sales.
Is the friend of the library, willing to partner with fundraising on it?
Absolutely. And I'd also like to say, I am absolutely certain we can come up with $50,000 by next July. We'll be approaching different stakeholders in the community, and providing them ideas on how they can fundraise, but right now, I can come up with probably $10,000 from sources that I have.
I think that's very reasonable. That's very.
To the tax write-off?
Yeah.
Sure it is.
501, yeah.
Additionally, I would say, so if for instance, the Friends of the Library happen to raise, let's just say $25,000, they go above and beyond. That is money that we can then put towards the project. So we would then have $1,525,000 to the project, as opposed to 1.5 million, because if they wanted to contribute that excess, and that'd be on them, but that's a potential to find more resources or more money if the budget happens to go up. And theoretically, if we had more contributions, we could expand the scope of what we wanted to do based off of what the extra money might provide us. But
as was mentioned earlier, if we, which they're willing, able to partner with a nonprofit for fundraising, then that nonprofit can give it to the city, and it's a lot more beneficial than if the city tries to fundraise. Right.
But can I make one more comment?
Yes, like
And that is that, the Ford Foundation, beyond the technical assistance grant, they will fund up through, I can't remember the name of the grant program right now, but they will provide up to 1/3 of the cost of a project, probably up to a certain amount, but, where I can't speak for everyone on the grant right now because we haven't had a meeting yet. But where I see the friends of the library coming in with this is definitely 15,000. I'm working on a project right now with First Federal. And we're building a couple of logos for them, and we asked our new rec forge, we asked for them to pay for the materials and then do a donation in lieu of an artist fee for our forge. So we've got that. We're building a distillery, and by next July, we'll have products on liquor store shelves all over Oregon. And I'm doing a special library gym, and all of the profits from that will go into the library. So we've got some things going on that will raise substantial sums of money. But beyond that, it's my understanding the CDBG grant will fund only the building and building furnishings, and then we have to come up with the rest of the money for tables, computers, everything else. And so we'll be fundraising to meet those needs. And so 15,000, yeah, we can do that. But we're hoping that we can concentrate our efforts on the incidentals for the library.
And she brings up a very good point. She mentioned there the furniture and the furnishings. So they were very clear about the fact that if we wanted to make the building earthquake proof or resilient or something, and therefore we had to manufacture the bookshelves into the wall system, and it was part of the structure of the building, they would cover that. But if we wanted to put a self-standing bookcase in the building, that's on us. So based off of what we come up with the design for the building, yes, we would have to pay for all the nice stuff that. But if we designed it in such a way that we could put some of the bookcases or tables or whatever we need in there, we could do that. One of the reasons.
Fold down from the walls.
Yeah.
Also on an interesting note, because of the ADA compliance requirements, if we made a full 2-story building, we would have to put in an elevator, and an elevator would eat up way too much of our budget. And there was some discussion as to whether they would actually fund that or not. So that is why Ann mentioned we would have like a loft where it would be a kind of an office space up top that would be for Ann and Patty to work and store in for storage that only they would have access to, and that would free up the downstairs area, but then alleviate the need for having an elevator because it wouldn't be a public access. So that was part of that thought process. I just wanted to elaborate since they snuck that in their comments there. So
Any other inputs or questions from the council?
Is it expanding the existing building footprint? Or?
yes, the hope is yes. By how much we don't know, because we would also still be required to provide ample parking and that sort of stuff. However, that area now that people just basically use as a right-of-way / alleyway behind the library and Coffee Town and the bank. Although technically you're not supposed to cut through the bank property to do that, we could cut that off by the building or additional parking or something else that would be beneficial to the library project. So
A first step will get a really good accurate survey of the property. To see what we're working with. If there is nothing else, I would ask for a motion. No, on the agenda item.
What's it called?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So after considering the public comments, I'm going to continue forward with our current CDBG application for the Amity Public Library improvement.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded to continue forward with our current CBDG application for Amity Public Library improvements. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Thank you all. I'm really looking forward to it. So I didn't want to share my input before the discussion. I'm gonna let you guys. But at the LOC conference that Mike and I just attended last week, the keynote speaker was a sociologist and an author, and he wrote a book called Palaces for the People. And it was based on how social infrastructure and the physical spaces that we offer shape our social interaction. So he talked about playgrounds, athletics, fields, churches, but his main focus was libraries. And just about the value of places where everyone feels like they belong and how they fight inequality, polarization, and promote this civic life, right? Like that we all want to feel engaged, and that people need places. So it was just very pertinent to what we're doing, and Mike and I kind of high-fived and like, we're one step ahead because we realize that it's there and we realize the importance, but it takes a lot of work and partnership. So I'm really happy to see. And then we'll move on to new business. We have a planning commission vacancy.
That would be Tasha.
Last in the packet, and he was gonna come to the last meeting. Last week, but we were meeting this week. We had, something else going on.
He did show for last night, Monday's planning commission, so he's familiar with the planning commission, met all the commissioners, and kind of knows what agenda items are coming up in the planning commission.
I had a weird question. Can't read that last word that he put on why he's interested in being on the planning commission. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I could either.
Okay.
Not below me.
I know.
Regardless, it's good to see an application come in.
Is he a former mayor of here? Or? He's been a long time resident.
He's a
Yeah.
long time resident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you say that?
Oh, I
Oh,
know.
okay. Okay. Okay.
Are we having a discussion?
Yeah, well,
Move to appoint, okay. The Amity Planning Commission to a term to expire December 31st, 2024. Second.
okay, we have a motion to approve Dan Hayes planning commission application. I don't have the. What, can you reread the dates?
Term to expire December 31st, 2024.
Yes, thank you, what she said. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Passed. Vacancy filled. We'll move on to department reports. Mike, do you have anything you would like to add?
Yes, just a couple things. The planning commission did meet on Monday, and they did direct staff to start working on the psilocybin regulations based off of council guidance. They also provide their own inputs on some things they would like us to look at, so staff will start that process. I sent out a draft of the public works hire to Bill Monahan, Public Works, and Tasha, just kind of see what they thought, and then I also asked Richard Howard to take a look at it, and they have council going to look at it as well, just to kind of see if we're on the right track for what we want in our new hire. Before we put it live, which I'd like to do sometime next week, I'll try to have Mayor King at least take a look at it too, so she can quality control it, and then we'll put that out as well with for Public Works. And other than that, I have nothing further to add, but open the question.
Was there any comments from Bill about painting the sidewalks?
Actually, he recommended we, I can look at it again, but I think he recommended we go ahead and paint the sidewalks. He did acknowledge that, yes, it does advertise the fact that we are highlighting a mistake, but he did recommend that the council basically hold a meeting or something that would address those concerns in the sense of, and I can make it as an agenda item. I would say, yes, we are aware of this. We're highlighting it by painting these things. We have a plan within the next 18 to 24 months. We're going to do X, Y, and Z to each one of these sidewalks. And we with an expectation that we'll resolve this issue within a set period of time and kind of put all those details out. So he was in favor of it, but it was as part of a grander plan to ultimately fix the problem.
Definitely in conjunction with having a timeline that we can stick to resolve the issue.
Yeah. Once we get it signed.
Yes, that is true too. But he also said, don't spray those things without. Yeah, it should be part of the project. I mean, we could just go out there and spray it, but then they're really not solving the problem, which was what was requested. Of note, as you had brought up previously, the sidewalk has gone in front of City Hall right there. You can see that they've taped it off while they're doing the work, and they're also re-landscaped it. So they should have that done. I initially said by Halloween. Tasha's talked to Public Works. They may try and actually get that done before we do the harvest party. We'll see, but they're working on it.
And then do we still expect to have the auditors here next month,
Yes,
November meeting?
we haven't heard anything otherwise, but yes, so we still expect them here to brief the whole audit. And it was a very easy audit, by the way. It's not done yet, but I'll put it this way. We had one gentleman here for a grand total of about 1 week. That's like 3 days the first time, 3 days the next time, and it was efficient. He had all the paperwork. I mean, it was a very smooth process, and we were very impressed by it.
What about the new company?
Yes. It looks so far, it looks really, really good. Yes, she's correct. It's not that.
Anything else for Mike? Tasha, do you have anything?
I sent out an email, just another computer coming up, so if you guys let me know by the third, like, if you can. Look for that, I just sent out. Oh,
It's the city county dinner and it rotates, and so that invitation is open to all. That's all.
And harvest party is next week, and we are still needing some volunteers. Yes, we're still needing some volunteers. We need, what, four more volunteers. Knows anybody?
So you guys can count on me in +1, I'll try to be me +2, but I'm definitely.
I mean, I'm one.
Okay. Yeah.
Saturday, the 22nd, from
Yeah.
2 to 4 p.m.
At a football game.
Okay, and then, is there anything happening in here this weekend, Sunday? Okay, if my husband is not gonna be around on right before, we might need to bring him. Perfect. But I can only secure 10.
Yes. Here's gonna look on getting some more, but we'll take 10, but. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
For public works, well,
Yeah.
So you're.
I mean, I have like 20 or 30.
Well, I can even help. I mean, I think that would be a better option. Okay. That it is a much more, yeah, okay. But then let me know if.
I just gotta figure out with public works, since we're short one guy.
Yeah.
I can use that.
Well, and I'll talk to you.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Anne, is there anything that you'd like to add to your library report for this month?
We're doing a book retreat. So we're handing out free books and fruits. And
Meet with me because Melissa just brought in a bunch of kid books and toys and stuff, so we're needing stuff to get that.
sure,
But,
we have a ton of books, but
okay,
yeah, maybe that's all good.
Dan? Okay,
I was gonna say real quick, we also will probably throw out the, we'll set up the box for the fire department toy drive. Sometime next month, in conjunction with the annual fire department. We'll advertise that later.
I want to ask, did everyone get Gary's report? Because I know it didn't make a cracket, but we did on there. I have a couple quick color questions on the engineering report. I'm gonna ask. Oh, yeah.
did we put together a flyer for the town hall? That we
Yeah. Over top of it. So for the SBA ramp, there was in this invoice, it said that it ran over. Can we have a meeting about the additional $1,300? Did you do that?
Yes,
Okay.
we approved it.
I figured it was a couple months ago. I just never heard anything, but we knew because they had.
Yes, and if anyone's driven by there, you'll note that there's now a sidewalk closed sign at the edge of the project. That was a requirement by ODOT, so we could, so Gary bought a sign. That was the last thing he did is buy the sign. We've installed it Monday, and then ODOT closed out the grant, so.
Oh, he did good.
I'm sitting my file and was.
And then my other question was for the ARPA water lines, the two projects that's merged into one as an invoice.
Mhm.
Heller's billed 40,000 out of 100,000 that they have for the project. But we're still in the works, so have they given you any information that they think that will be a higher cost than the $100,000?
No, they have not, but they're still running the engineering and buying the confirming the easements and buying the permits that they need. So
Yeah,
I can ask them. I don't, they haven't given me no indication.
okay. Well, because I looked at their percentage complete, they're really good at having the breakdown, and that might be that they've done the majority of their work and it will get passed on. I was just surprised that we hit the 40% mark so early on.
Mhm.
So I guess just, if not a question other than ask, please check in with them.
Okay.
I added a silly question in there too.
Yes, sir.
With us being down superintendent and those projects going on, do you know if we pay Keller for like a projects manager fee already for them to come out and kind of keep an eye on the projects, or?
I discussed that with Mayor King and with Peter Olson. They will do project management and they will pick up any of the appropriate tasks that Gary does. If it's within the budget for the project, we'll just include it in the budget. If it goes over, we'll have to pay for it, but we're negotiating how that will cover. And Peter Olson promised me that they will not let anything fall through the cracks if based off of management or oversight of any of the projects because of Gary's departure.
But we have the ongoing billing for just professional services, so that can be on the ad unit.
Yeah.
If we don't have
Mhm.
another option. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to the theater and start with Council President Knight. Really have anything. Fire department working on new Christmas decorations. But other than that, nothing really. They were just wanting to confirm that parade and we got that straightened out, so. If they have any, Christmas, if they're gonna do a Christmas planning meeting, I would be happy to be able to. Okay.
This is-
Any questions for Council today? Here, Council Bojorquez.
I found out some neat information about the city park. Just happened to say I can't take any credit for it, but, my in-laws have longtime friends, the Lansfields, that own about 220 acres, in Amity. It's currently burning for hazelnut, it's 7 years. But they've been longtime friends. They never knew their farm was actually in Amity. And they were coming up to visit, so they were seeing them, and it's just kind of random that it happens to be in Amity. They thought it was in Oregon. But I mentioned to her, since their plot of land has been in their family from a great grandfather who came over on the Oregon Trail. And so it was like an original land grant. It's been in their family forever. And I said, hey, if you know anything about the city park, ask them and see if they know anything. And they didn't, but she reached out to the Oregon Historical Society. And they got back to her the same day and gave her a copy of a publication from the Oregon Journal in 1974 that kind of highlighted the history of the park. It was the Watts family who owned the property, and they got the property as an original donation land claim. Those were issued from 1850 to 1855. And its intention was to help homestead settlements in Oregon. And the land was given to white men or mixed white and Native American men as like an incentive to come and plot here in homestead. You had to already be in Oregon before 1850 and apply for it, and you had to work the land for 4 years before you can legally claim it. So the Watts family brought over a large portion of their family from Missouri. And John and Mary Watts were the father and mother, and she was unable to walk, so she actually traveled here in a covered wagon in a tent against doctor's orders and against their advice. The article actually says she poo-pooed and came over here. She ended up outliving her husband. He died at 61, and there was no actual cemetery in Amity yet. And so she donated the land that is now a cemetery and buried them. I guess they have a tall marker in the cemetery that's like a big white marker that is for the Watts family as a dedication, but she also later donated the city park. So I think if we are to name it, if we're looking forward to the future and hoping to have other parks in the city, that maybe we name it Mary Watts Family Park or something. So that's just some extra information I thought was kind of neat that I have to know.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's great. They were actually the first family to bring sheep in the or into the Willamette Valley. Yeah.
Any questions or other comments for Council Bojorquez? Thank you for sharing that. Counselor Dunlap? Do you have anything for the good of the ordinance? Counselor Dyche?
No.
No. I do. You guys all knew it. Mayor's report. So the LOC conference went really well. There's great speakers. I talked about the keynote speaker and networking opportunities. Some of the breakout sessions were really region specific. It was in Bend and their water issues are different than our water issues here. But there was also some that were really pertinent and inspiring that I would love to utilize here. And they're actually in conjunction with, we do the yearly surveys. And so I just have some new ideas and we'll have a infusion into council during that time after election. So maybe during a work session, we can dive into some of those things. I also wanted to check in, we're gonna do the citywide pumpkin decorating contest again. So by our town hall, I would like to know for sure which councilors are in and out, because I'll have maps made of them. Last year, we just portioned the city into 6 different sections, each councilor taking one, and then when councilors weren't able to, we just double up. So by our town hall, I'll have the map done, and then we'll do the pumpkin judging, which I can get into more, but it just consists of picking your favorite from your section of the city. We'll do that the 27th through the 31st. And then I also want to, so last year, each counselor picked their favorite, took a picture, brought the address back, and then we made a second trip out to hand out the prizes. I think it might be a lot easier just to give out the prizes when people win. It was awkward to keep going. So we can talk about that. Anyone who wants to take up a portion can get them the prize, and then just make sure that the info gets relayed back to the staff, so we know who the winners were. I also, at the conference, got a great handout. The city of Tigard, with their ARPA funds, did a project. They set up a public safety advisory board. And while it's not something that would quite fit what Amity needs, I'm gonna pass that information to Councilor Saucier as the public safety point of contact, just to look at. That's another work session thing that might be good. And then last but not least, I was approached by a community member today who had watched our meetings online and was interested in the litter control city cleanup. And so actually her and her husband on their own plan to take up a whole quadrant of the city as a responsibility to start that. And I said, go for it. I love it. Thank you. But I also said that maybe that would be the inspiration that we can plan a meeting to see if there's, because now we at least have 4 people outside of council that want to make this happen. So I'd like to in the near future, probably not till November, plan a meeting and just invite the whole community. So we can see how many people we have. I think that's all I have. Any questions or anyone's comments? Then I'll ask for a final motion. Motion to adjourn. There's been a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. And any opposed, please signify by saying no. Meeting adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. It was great to see